My name is Kathy Green. I'm 39 years old. And the last thing I remembered was lifting a glass of wine at my parents' dinner table, toasting to 20 years of Green Valley vineyards. Then the room tilted. My mother's face blurred into a smear of concern, and everything went black. This is Second Seat Stories. And when I opened my eyes again, I wasn't on the dining room floor. I was in a hospital bed, but not any hospital bed. Silk sheets, a private nurse checking my vitals, a bouquet of white orchids on the windowsill that must have cost more than most people's rent. The room smelled like eucalyptus and money. I blinked at the ceiling, trying to piece together how a dinner toast had turned into a private suite with a view of the city skyline. "You're awake," the nurse said gently, adjusting the IV in my arm. "Your family will be relieved. You gave everyone quite a scare." I tried to sit up. My body felt like wet sand. "What happened to me?" "Your mother said you collapsed suddenly at dinner. The doctors think it might have been a reaction to your medication, or possibly exhaustion. You've been out for almost 2 days." 2 days. I hadn't taken any medication in months. I raised my hand to rub my temple and noticed a bruise on the inside of my elbow. Small. Purple. In a place no fall could have caused. The nurse stepped out to get the attending physician. I lay there trying to remember the dinner. My father raising a toast to the vineyard's anniversary. My sister Renata pouring the wine herself, insisting on using the good bottle for the occasion. My mother watching me a little too closely as I drank. I remembered the first sip tasting slightly bitter. Remembered thinking that was odd, then nothing. The door was left half open when the nurse left, and through the gap, I heard my mother's voice. Low, urgent, speaking to someone I couldn't see. "Is she still out?" she whispered. Not, "How is she?" Not, "Is she okay?" "Is she still out?" My stomach dropped like a stone into a well. Then my sister's voice, unmistakably amused. "By morning, the house, the company, everything will be mine." I heard the clink of a glass, like she was toasting herself in a hospital hallway, while I lay drugged 20 feet away. My father's voice came next, calm, clipped, the same voice he uses closing business. "Deals. She'll never see it coming." Lay perfectly still. My heart hammering so hard I was afraid they'd hear it through the wall. 39 years old, and I'd just learned that the 3 people who raised me, fed me, celebrated every one of my birthdays, had been planning to erase me from my own life. Green Valley Vineyards wasn't just a business. It was my grandfather's legacy, left to me specifically in his will, after he watched my parents mismanage 2 other properties into the ground. They never forgave me for that inheritance. I just never imagined they'd drug me over it. I thought about calling out right there, letting them see my eyes open, watching the color drain from their faces, but something colder and steadier took over instead. If they thought I was still unconscious, still harmless, still theirs to control, I'd let them keep thinking that a little longer. People who believe they've already won stop being careful. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Found a voicemail from my attorney, Julian Castellano, the only person outside this family I trusted completely. He'd been quietly building a file for months, ever since I mentioned small oddities. Missing ledgers, a forged signature on a supply contract, an unusual transfer from the winery's account to an offshore holding company registered under my sister's married name. I'd brushed it off as paranoia back then. I wasn't paranoid. I was late. Through the gap in the door, I watched my mother's shadow pace back and forth, my father standing rigid beside her, my sister's laugh echoing one more time before their footsteps carried them away down the corridor. My hands were shaking, but my mind had never been clearer. I typed 4 words to Julian. Words that would set into motion everything we'd quietly prepared for exactly this moment. Execute the plan now. I hit send, set the phone face down on my chest, closed my eyes again, slowed my breathing to match the rhythm of the machines beside me. If they wanted to believe I was still unconscious, still helpless, still theirs for the taking, I'd let them walk straight into a trap they didn't know I'd already built. By sunrise, I'd been awake for 6 hours. No one in my family knew it. I kept my breathing slow, my eyelids barely closed, gathering pieces of a plan I hadn't fully understood until now. Julian had replied within minutes. Stay quiet. Stay safe. What my parents didn't know was that 6 months earlier, after noticing those missing ledgers and strange transfers, I had quietly moved controlling ownership of Green Valley Vineyards into an irrevocable trust. Myself as sole beneficiary, Julian as trustee, should anything ever happen to me. My grandfather taught me that lesson without ever meaning to. Protect what matters most before someone else decides they deserve it more than you. I'd done it discreetly, through a separate law firm in another state. Precisely so, no one watching the winery's books would notice the paperwork. Change. My family thought they were maneuvering around a woman who trusted them blindly. They had no idea the woman they were maneuvering around had already moved the entire chessboard. Mother appeared at my bedside around 9 that morning, her face arranged into practiced concern, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue that had never touched a tear. "Sweetheart, you scared us half to death," she said, squeezing my hand. I let my eyes flutter open slowly, played the part of a woman still fogged with confusion. "What happened?" "You collapsed at dinner. The doctors think it might have been an allergic reaction. Maybe stress," she said smoothly, not a flicker of guilt on her face. My father stood behind her, arms crossed, nodding along like a man rehearsing a role he'd played 100 times. Renata leaned in the doorway, scrolling her phone, barely looking up, like my hospitalization was an inconvenience interrupting her schedule. I asked for water. My father fetched it himself, a small act of performative kindness. As he handed me the cup, I noticed his watch, an anniversary gift I'd given him 3 years earlier. I wondered how long he'd been planning to take everything from me while wearing it. I thanked him softly, said I needed rest. They left the room satisfied, believing the drugged, disoriented daughter in that bed posed no threat to their plans. They were wrong, by exactly the amount of time it took Julian to file the paperwork. 2 days later, discharged and staying at a hotel instead of my family home, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Julian's voice was calm, almost gentle, the way it always is right before he delivers devastating news to someone else. "It's done," he said. "The board's been notified. Effective immediately, Green Valley Vineyards operates under the trust. Your parents and Renata no longer have signing authority on any account. The offshore transfer's been flagged and frozen, pending a fraud investigation." He paused. "And Kathy, the security footage from the dinner. We pulled it from the private cameras your grandfather installed years ago. It's clear your mother added something to your glass before pouring it. We have it on record." I sat in silence, absorbing the weight of that. 20 years of birthdays, holidays, family dinners, collapsing under the truth of a single video clip. But there was no room for grief. Not yet. There was only the next step. My parents arrived at the winery the following Monday, expecting business as usual, and found their keycards deactivated. A legal notice waiting at the front office, signed by Julian Castellano on behalf of the Green Family Trust. Renata called me 11 times that afternoon. I let every call ring out. When she finally texted, demanding an explanation, I replied with one sentence. "I was never as unconscious as you thought." The investigation moved quickly once law enforcement reviewed the footage and the financial records Julian had compiled. My mother's whispered question outside my hospital door, my sister's gleeful promise of ownership, my father's chilling certainty that I'd never see it coming. All of it became evidence. Not just memory. Green Valley Vineyards remained fully mine, untouched, protected, exactly as my grandfather intended when he chose me over the people who raised me. I stood at the winery gates a month later, watching the morning light stretch gold across the vines, and felt something settle in my chest I hadn't expected. Peace. Not because my family got what they deserved, though they had, but because I trusted myself when it mattered most, even lying still and silent in a hospital bed, letting them believe they'd already won. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, hit subscribe. This is Second Seat Stories, and there's a new one every day.